All right, today we're going to be talking about nutrition labels, basically how to read them. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison of the old version and the new version because this year it is mandated that there's a new version of nutrition labels, so you might have seen them looking a little funny lately. All companies had to start phasing them in. They're supposed to be phased in already, I believe, if not at least by the end of the year. I do have an example of the old version, so something that you're probably more familiar with. And then I have an example of the newer version as well. So this is going to be something that you should expect to see going forward, because this is what the new requirement is. Not very many changes. It looks a little different. Only slightly different stuff is going to be listed on there, and only some stuff was taken off. So we'll go over what the changes are and things like that. So we'll give people another minute or two. Yeah, I see the Facebook one is still going, but for some reason the YouTube one stopped. It says that they detected something that violates their standards, which I don't know because I'm just sitting in my living room. Like I said, I'll record it. At least Facebook will have it, and then we'll get our marketing and tech people on it. I just lift things up and put them down. Okay. Alright, well, I guess that's going to be good enough for good enough. Alright, so as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the comments and I'll try to hit them later. Let's try and stay a little bit more on topic this week. Last week was kind of broad-based, so we were doing all sorts of stuff. So this week in particular, if it's about nutrition labels, then throw it in the chat. If it's off topic, then feel free to shoot me a private message and then we'll go from there. All right, so let's start off with generally how to read a nutrition label. All right, so we'll start with the old version. All right, so this is going to be what people are more familiar with, so I think it'll be a little bit easier to teach you guys with what you're more familiar with. All right, one of my favorite products ever. So most of my clients know I'm a big believer in most people having a deficiency in protein, so sneaking in extra protein where you can is going to be half of the battle. All right, one of my favorite products ever, protein pancake mix. All right, you can make pancakes, you can make waffles, just like any other pancake mix that you would be using, but you can see here, they sneak in 14 grams of protein for you. All right, not too crazy with the carbs. There's 30 grams of carbs in here. 5 of that is going to be dietary fiber. All right, so 3 grams there for your sugar. All right, so keep an eye on that because there's going to be a little bit of a difference. So that's one of the changes that you'll see when we go to the new label there. But generally with nutrition labels, so starting at the top, it tells you what the nutrition facts are. All right, and keep in mind when you see this word serving size, and we touched on this last week, there's a difference between a serving size and a portion. The serving size on a nutrition label is literally only there for the company to be able to break down these numbers for you. That's not a recommended serving size. It's just there simply for making the math easier. It's got nothing to do with how much of that product you're supposed to be eating in any single seating. All right, so that's the big problem with nutrition size. I'm trying to do this backwards in the camera here. All right, so that's the big problem with the serving sizes in general. The second problem with serving sizes is we don't really have an idea of what these numbers mean when you put the food on your plate. So if I tell you you're going to have 53 grams of this product as one serving or a half a cup as one serving, most people are like, what does that even mean? 53 grams. How much is that? Is that one fist? Is that two fists? Is that fitting in the palms of my hands? It takes a little trial and error sometimes. Measure it out a little bit. See what it, use the exact measurements. So like old school baking rules. Actually measure stuff out. And if you know anything about baking, if any of the measurements are off, you're not going to create what you think you're creating. Measure it out and see what it actually looks like. All right, so going from there, you'll be able to kind of forge that association with what these numbers mean and what the amount of food actually looks like. Because we'll just make what we think looks like an appropriate serving size, and then when we measure it out, we're like, oh, well, that was actually 3 servings. So you would have to multiply all that stuff by 3 to actually get your accurate statistics. So any of my clients that I have using MyFitnessPal or using some sort of a tracker to keep an eye on their intake, the first thing we do is just monitor. It's all about observation. So just record the data, collect the information, then we interpret it. We'll analyze it and interpret it, and then we'll kind of go from there. But back to the labels here. All right, let me see. Okay, so going down, so it'll tell you that serving size, hold on, still trying to figure out this upside down stuff. It tells you that this serving size, it makes about 3 4-inch flapjacks. All right, it doesn't always tell you that. This is just going a little extra for the company, saying 1 serving of this product is 53 grams, and you can expect it to make about 3 4-inch pancakes. All right, moving on down. All right, so this is the old label. So this is going to be 190 calories, and it has to break out how many calories were from fat. All right, we'll keep an eye on that. It breaks down your total fat, and then it was mandated to break down saturated and trans fats. So that's something that doesn't change. That's going to still be on the new label as well. All right, so we have the grams first. It's going to list the grams, and then it's going to list what it calls the % daily value. All right, so this is the most recent FDA-approved, government-recommended amount of these things that you're supposed to have in your regular diet. If you're working with a nutrition coach or a registered dietitian or anything along those lines, they're probably going to override these numbers. All right, there's a good reason for that. Most of the time, the government numbers have nothing to do with what most people should be doing on a regular basis. They don't take individuality into account. That's our job as your coach. So we'll get you set up with accurate numbers for your program. All right, moving down the list. Still mandated, has to list cholesterol, still has to list sodium, still has to list total carbs. So in here, you're going to see the total carbs. We got our 30 grams, 10% of the recommended daily value. All right, and that's they have to break down how much of those carbohydrates come from fiber and how much of those carbohydrates come from sugars. On the new labels, you'll see there's a little bit different there. We'll go over that when we get to the new label. All right. And then it tells you the amount of protein. All right, underneath, it's going to show you the 4 micronutrients, vitamin A, vitamin C, calcium, and iron, that were mandated to be on here. All right, that covers that portion. All right, when we get down to the ingredients section, the items on this list are in order of size or in order of quantity. So the first item on the list in the ingredients list is the largest ingredient in that product. All right, and then it goes in descending order. So at the bottom of the list, you're going to see the least used ingredient in the product. So all the way coming down here, we got sea salt is all the way at the end. So that means of all the things that are in this, sea salt is the least thing in here. A couple of special notes. So when you're looking at products, in particular, looking at like a supplement or something like that, and all of these things have to look the same way. That's the one mandate from the government, is a nutrition label has to look like a nutrition label. It has to be laid out the same way. It has to be formatted the same way. right down to like the text size and font. With supplements, a lot of the supplements that are out there have what's going to be called a proprietary blend. So the government doesn't require that supplements and manufacturers give out trade secrets or company secrets, because if they have a special blend in their product to make it their special product that makes them more competitive to anyone else, they're not required to list out the amounts of those things. And in some cases, they're not even required to tell you what those things are. All they have to do is say that there are X amount of grams or micrograms or whatever of our proprietary blend. Most places are trying to market themselves as clean and organic in the supplement community. So most of the time, they're going to tell you what those items are, but they still probably won't tell you the amount of each of those items in their special blend. So they have to tell you that there's a blend. Most of the time, they'll tell you what's in it. Most of the time, they will not tell you how much. All right, but that covers the ingredients portion. And then all the way at the bottom there is going to be any allergy waivers or anything like that. Most of the time, everything these days is all made in the same factories, just different areas and different times. So they'll kind of rotate through when they make certain products so they don't cross-contaminate, but the machinery is still the same, or in the same room or in the same building as something that you might be allergic to. So it's going to tell you that this product was made in a factory that also produces peanuts. Even though this product doesn't have peanuts in it, it was used on the same machinery or in the same room, in the same facility as another product that does contain peanuts. So that's trying to avoid the cross-contamination with allergies. So there's always going to be an allergy warning on there as well. Let me see. I think that pretty much covers the old labels. Right. I don't see any questions so far, but I do see that Tina loves Kodiak pancakes, and so do I. They're amazing. One of the best things out there. All right, so what we got going on now is the new label. All right. Looks mostly the same. A little bit fancier. Very subtle changes. All right, so starting at the top here, we still have to identify that these are the nutrition facts. It's still going to tell you how many servings are in the container and how many and how large each serving is. All right. One change with this right off the bat is the government mandated that serving sizes have to more closely resemble a portion size. So they can't just do it strictly for the math. Now it has to be more of a realistic amount of food that someone that bought that product is likely to consume in a single seating, which is what our portions are. All right. So everything's still going to be measured out the same. First and foremost, the first thing you're going to notice that the calories are going to be bigger, bolder, and right at the top. So we're going to see right off the bat how many calories are in this product per serving. All right, we still have our total fat, which is going to be broken down into our saturated and our trans fats. We're still going to have cholesterol listed. We're still going to have our sodium listed, and we're still going to have our total carbs listed. But one little change with our total carbs, it's still going to be broken down into our dietary fats and total sugars. But underneath total sugars, now they're government mandated to disclose how many or how much of those sugars were added as opposed to naturally found in that product. All right, so we're going from total sugars to breaking it down even more into added sugars, and that's in that breakdown of our carbohydrates. All right, so with our, we still have the protein listed there. Our micronutrients change a little bit. So we're still going to have calcium and iron listed on there, but vitamin A and vitamin C are not on there anymore. Government does not require that they be listed. However, now the government does require that vitamin D and potassium. All right, so every once in a while, the company's going to throw a couple little extras in there, but the four that are required is going to be calcium, vitamin D, iron, and potassium. All right. So that's going to be one of the changes there. We still have that little warning label, the percent daily value, and that's going to tell you how much a nutrient serving should be based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Like I said, most people are not going to be on 2,000 calorie diets, especially if you're in a weight loss program. Come see me, send me a message. We'll figure out what your calorie target's supposed to be. All right, these are two of my favorite products. Super simple ways to get in protein, a little bit of fat. A couple of things to look out for with ingredients and words to look out for. So going back into our ingredients list. All right, I'm going to try and get this so you guys can see. All right, remember starting at the top. So ingredients made from roasted peanuts and sugar. So first two items in here, peanuts and sugar. It contains 2% or less of molasses. All right, cool. Uh-oh, what's that word there? Fully hydrogenated. But it's vegetable oils, so not a big deal. But difference between fully and partially hydrogenated. All right, so if you've ever sat down with me before, one of the buzzwords that I tell people to look out for is that word hydrogenated. If you see that word, generally run away from that product. However, there is a difference between fully and partially hydrogenated. All right, so going back to, let's say 90s, when trans fats was a thing. Now most foods do not have any trans fats in it. I believe the government completely banned trans fats, so all companies are going to happily advertise that their product has no trans fats in it. The partially hydrogenated is more closely on a chemical level, more closely related to a trans fat than a saturated fat. The fully hydrogenated makes it more of a saturated fat. Depending on what your program is, might not be the best thing in the world. Still, because it's a saturated fat, it's still going to be associated with the cardiovascular disease risk and things like that. However, depending on your program, fully hydrogenated foods are not the worst thing in the world, and they're easily mitigated, and you can easily mitigate those risks associated with the cardiovascular disease with, maintaining a healthier diet with everything else and maintaining exercise. So the big risk with that is the risk of plaquing up the arteries, but physical activity with other nutritional guidelines is going to help prevent that anyway. I believe that's everything I got for you guys today. I don't see any questions in here. I'll give you guys a minute or two to throw some questions out. But it's not a bad idea to start practicing some of this stuff in the grocery store. So now that you know how to read the label, compare products. Like go in the grocery store, look side by side. So general recommendation: if something is below 10% of the percent of daily value that's on there, it's generally not considered a good source of that nutrient. And if something is likewise listed at I believe 20% or above, it's generally looked at as a good source of whatever that nutrient is. So like fat, for example, the fat in my peanut butter is listed at 21% of my daily value. Okay, so that's going to be a good source of fat. So if you're looking to get some fats into your diet, peanut butter is a great way to go. Depending on sensitivities and things like that, there's a lot that'll go into that. However, if you're not sensitive to peanuts and if it fits within your plan, and you're doing your quantitative nutrition and you're just going for the numbers, then go for it. It's a great source of fat there. You see the protein pancakes here. We got 14 grams, so that doesn't even have a listed percentage for the old protein pancakes or the old nutrition label. I don't believe that was mandated until recently, what the recommended target is for protein, but you're probably going to be overridden on that anyway by your coach. All right, I don't see any questions, so we'll sign off. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and then we'll see you next time.